The M3 medium tank, known as the Lee or Grant, depending on its variant, was a critical early war armored vehicle for the United States and its allies. It served as a stopgap design to bridge the gap between older tank models and more advanced designs like the M4 Sherman. The development and deployment of the M3 reveal much about the rapid technological and tactical evolution of armored warfare in the early years of World War II. Background and development. At the start of World War II, the United States Army's armored forces were significantly behind the European powers in terms of tank design. American doctrine and tank development had been influenced by interwar debates, which emphasized tanks primarily for infantry support, and thus the US Army possessed only a limited number of light tanks and a few outmoded medium tanks. The rapid German successes in 1939 and 1940, particularly the Blitzkrieg tactics that decimated Allied forces, demonstrated the critical need for modern, fast-moving, and heavily armed tanks. The United States had no equivalent to the newer German Panzer III or IV in production, leading to a scramble to develop a capable medium tank as quickly as possible. In July 1940, US military officials recognized the need for an interim design that could be fielded quickly while work continued on the more advanced M4 Sherman. The resulting project was designated the medium tank M3. It had to incorporate components that could be manufactured quickly and use existing technology to minimize production delays. This led to a unique design that blended both expediency and firepower, design features, and armament. The M3 tank design was a compromise that featured several notable and, at times, controversial characteristics. One of its most distinctive features was its armament. The tank mounted a 75mm M2 or M3 main gun in the right side sponson fixed to the hull, which provided high explosive firepower and anti-tank capabilities. This was supplemented by a secondary 37mm M5 gun in a fully traversable turret. The hull-mounted 75mm gun was a significant deviation from conventional tank designs of the period, which typically mounted their main armament in fully rotating turrets. This layout limited the M3's flexibility in combat, as the entire vehicle had to be repositioned to aim the main gun at a new target. The hull-mounted 75mm, however, was chosen for practical reasons. There was no turret at the time capable of carrying this caliber in a rotating mount, but the gun itself was already in production and available. The tank's secondary turret mounted the 37mm gun, which was considered adequate against early war German armor, and was included to offer an anti-tank capability that was fully mobile. Another feature of the M3 was its high profile. At 10 feet tall, the vehicle presented a large silhouette, making it an easy target. The tank's layered armor, ranging from 38mm to 51mm, offered good protection for the time, but the tall superstructure and riveted armor design were seen as liabilities. Variants: Lee and Grant. There were two primary versions of the M3 Lee and the M3 Grant. The names come from British naming conventions, honoring US Civil War generals Robert E. Lee and Ulysses S. Grant. M3 Lee. The original US version of the M3, equipped with a cast or welded turret, was named the Lee by the British. It had a cupola-mounted 37mm gun which sat atop the tall turret. This cupola was intended to give the tank a commander's position, but was criticized by the British for its impracticality. M3 Grant. In response to British feedback, a modified version was developed for the British Army, known as the Grant. This variant eliminated the cupola-mounted gun and incorporated a lower-profile turret with a side hatch for easier crew access. The changes significantly improved the Grant's silhouette and combat effectiveness. Operational history. The M3 first saw combat in the North African Campaign, where it was fielded by both British and American forces. The British were the first to deploy the M3 in significant numbers during the desert battles of 1941-1942, as their existing tanks were being outclassed by German panzers. Despite its shortcomings, the M3's powerful 75mm gun gave it an edge over earlier British and German tanks like the Panzer III, which had only a 50mm main armament. The 75mm gun's ability to fire effective high-explosive shells was especially valuable against fortified positions, making the M3 a potent support tank. However, the tank's high profile and awkward sponson mounted gun placement led to mixed reviews. In tank versus tank engagements, the M3 was at a disadvantage against more agile and lower-profile German tanks. The tank's complexity also made it more challenging to produce and maintain in the field compared to simpler designs like the upcoming M4 Sherman. The M3's limitations were apparent, but it performed a vital role as a stopgap solution, providing the Allies with a medium tank capable of fighting in a period when they had few alternatives. This was especially true in the early stages of the North African Campaign, where its firepower and durability were assets, impact, and legacy. The M3 service in North Africa paved the way for more advanced designs. As a training vehicle and second-line tank, it continued to serve in various roles through the early years of the war. By mid-1942, the M4 Sherman began to replace the M3 in frontline service. The Sherman corrected many of the M3's design flaws, such as the inability to traverse its main gun and the excessively high profile, while incorporating the same 75mm main armament in a fully rotating turret. Nonetheless, the M3 influenced tank design in several ways. It demonstrated the necessity of a larger caliber main gun for medium tanks, pushing designers to prioritize armament over speed and profile. Moreover, the Grant variant, in particular, proved that good design could emerge from battlefield feedback and adaptation. The M3 was eventually phased out of frontline service by 1943, but continued to serve in secondary theaters and as a training vehicle. By the end of the war, the M3 was largely obsolete, overshadowed by more modern designs like the Sherman, but it had served its purpose during a critical period of the conflict. Conclusion: the M3 Lee and Grant were born out of necessity and shaped by the urgency of war. Though far from perfect, they provided the Allies with a powerful weapon when it was most needed and helped bridge the gap to more advanced tanks like the M4 Sherman. In this way, the M3 holds a unique place in tank development history as both a flawed but essential design and a testament to the adaptability and ingenuity of wartime production.